I just turned 30, which means I've been running for more than 75% of my life, and today I'm going to take you through the 30 things that I would tell myself if I could go back in time. The first is that everyone is so different and you can't just copy what other people are doing because they're faster than you. I first made this mistake when I went to Texas on a scholarship when I was 21. For the first time in my whole life, I could see all the training that people were doing who were where I wanted to be, and I thought I'll just copy them. It didn't work, and actually all I got was quite a lot slower. Next is that consistency is more important than anything. You have to find what you can do for 12 weeks. You shouldn't be just going and hitting a massive session or a massive training week and then the next week you're really tired and can't do anything else. You have to be consistent. You have to think about the bigger picture and think long term, and that's how you're going to get better. Next is that lack of recovery doesn't just affect the next day, and that's not what you should be focusing on. I used to go out on nights out and go out drinking and think as long as I got my long run done, kind of no matter when that was, it was fine and I had gotten away with it and it hadn't affected my training. But now when you're wearing a watch, like I wear the Coros to bed every night, and if you drink, you can see that your recovery is just on the floor. Going out on nights out and losing a lot of sleep really affects your recovery for much more than that one day. So you have to just prioritise recovering, especially when you're deep in a training block. And related to this, something that I would tell my late teenage self is that you're not an exception to the rule. Just because you think you can go out drinking and still train well the next day, you can't. You're not reaching your full potential by doing this. Focus on doing the things that are going to make you better at running. And I'm not telling my 18-year-old self not to have fun, but don't think that you're doing everything you can to get better when you're going out drinking every weekend. Next is that you don't have to be miserable to run fast. This is something I only probably did for a couple of years at the start of my running career, but I thought every hard session got to be shorts and t-shirt. You don't have to train like that, and I still see people doing this all the time now. I'm out, tights, jacket, woolly hat, gloves, and there's people out in shorts and t-shirt, and it doesn't have to be like that. You can actually wear the appropriate layers and still get better at running, I promise. Moving on to a fairly recent realisation for me, and that's that running isn't the only way to get better at running. Cross training really does work. Your heart and lungs don't know the difference whether you're out running or you're out cross training. And of course, running is the most specific way to get better at running. But if you need to cross train for whatever reason, it's going to help, it's going to make you better, and you should definitely do that. Next is one that took a long time for me to realise, and that's that most of your running has to be done really slow. My dad was a runner, still is a runner. He's very old school, he just goes out and runs fast. And that's how I started off. That was like the only real way that I could see how to train was through my dad. So I would go out on these runs, and I remember when I was like 13 or 14, my first mile would be under 7 minutes, and I would maintain that the whole way. Now I go out, bearing in mind I'm way faster in races, and my first mile can be like 8:30 because I'm a bit stiff, I'm a bit tired, I'm recovering from the training and making sure that the hard days are good. And it's really important to just run slow, and that should help you build up your mileage. Going too fast in easy days is not a good thing. And this leads me nicely on to the next point, which is that training is not a race. I used to go for an easy run up my running club, maybe 16, 17, and we used to hammer it, like proper racing each other, like putting in bursts to try and get away from people. And we used to do tempos at training, a 6k tempo, and you're basically going through 5k at PB pace and then racing the guy next to you. This is not the best way to train. There is obviously a time and a place for just working hard and smashing yourself, but I don't think it's multiple times a week. And you should probably listen to your coach, especially if you're not getting the race results that you want. One foolproof way for you to slow down on your easy runs is to realise that nobody cares about what you're doing on Strava. When Strava first came about, my easy runs picked up because I'm like, okay, everyone's watching me now. I can't go out and run 7:30s on an easy day. I need to be under 7s because everybody's watching. Nobody cares, okay? Nobody cares about your Strava. Nobody cares about your running as much as you do. Just do what's right for you, and if the race results come, then people will care. However, you should definitely follow me on Strava, and while you're there, subscribe if you're enjoying the video. Next point, most of your running issues and your disappointment with results can just be solved by running more and training harder. I used to spend so much time stretching, and I remember I went through this phase of being obsessed with my cadence. Just run more, just train harder. If you can't run more, if you're a teenager like I was back then, go on the cross trainer, work hard on there, just do more training. If you feel you need to stretch to stay uninjured, do that, but don't spend half an hour stretching if you don't need to. You could be going out for a 4-mile run. Something very important that would have saved me a bit of embarrassment in my first marathon is that salt is not a bad thing. I feel like salt is just demonised all the time as being this terrible thing. You shouldn't salt your dinners, but you need it, otherwise you're going to cramp. And I've had a lot of bad experiences with cramp in the marathon, and salt has been the only thing that's really helped. So if you're sweating a lot, if you're doing any sort of heat training, you need to replenish those electrolytes. Don't avoid the salt. Speaking of the marathon, your shorter distance race performances will mean nothing when you get to 26.2 miles if you haven't done the proper training for it. I thought I was just going to rock up to my first marathon and run under 2:20 because I'd ran a 65-minute half. It's not how it works. I hadn't done the hard long runs that you need for the marathon. And no matter how quick you are at the shorter stuff, if you don't specifically train for the marathon, it's not going to go well. Final one on marathon race specifically, and that's that banking time is almost always a bad idea. So much can go wrong in the second half of a marathon, and being 90 seconds up at halfway is not going to save you if you've went off too hard. Being better than you were previously, even if just by a little, should always be celebrated. I was pretty harsh on myself as a junior, always just wanted to be the best, and would never just celebrate the small wins. I think I'm a lot better at that now, but you gotta just celebrate getting better. You're putting in the training to make sure that you get better, and whatever anyone else is doing, especially when you're in your teenage years, is sort of irrelevant. So just celebrate a PB, great, the fastest you've ever ran for that distance. Enjoy it. Another few now that come from my dad's old school mentality that I really had to work through getting past as I got older. First is that you don't need to rise and grind. One of my dad's favourite sayings is that there's 2 5 o'clocks in one day. Yes, that's great if you need to do that, but if you don't need to do that, just get up and run whenever you feel like it. Your training will be better and more consistent. Next up is that you do actually need to fuel your long runs. Although there's so many stories of guys from the 70s and 80s running marathons in crazy times, just taking a sip of water, if anything. You need to fuel, and you'll recover so much better if you just have some gels, and it's also just going to be a lot more pleasant. Finally, on debunking the old school myths, running on a treadmill is not less valuable than running outdoors, and going inside the train doesn't make you soft. It just means that you're prioritising getting the training done as well as you can. Moving on, something that I always told myself when I was like 22, 23, is that I didn't like being told what to do, and that's what I had thought just based on my history with coaches. I liked having some input in my training, but actually I now realise this is not the case. I actually don't mind being told what to do as long as I believe in the training and I can see where that training is going to get me. So I guess this one is just get a good coach that has the same values as you, believes in the same type of training as you, and you won't actually mind being told what to do because it's probably close to what you'd be doing anyway. And speaking of good coach, I will leave a link to my coaching website in the description. I do not coach myself, but I coach a few people very successfully and I'm enjoying it. So I'll leave that down there if you're interested in being coached by me. But next point, you will feel terrible in the last week of training before a big race, and I can assure you that it's all in your head. I don't think I ever finished a Wednesday session before the national cross country. I always just felt so bad and I had to cut it short early, And for me, I think it's going into these sessions expecting them to be easy. For example, now if I'm running 5 by 3 minutes at marathon pace about 4 days before a marathon, it should feel easy, and I'm expecting it to feel like a jog would feel. It doesn't quite feel that easy, and you feel a bit crap, and you're overthinking it. How's my breathing? How are my legs? How am I going to do this for over 2 hours? You just need to get through these sessions and get on the start line without going crazy. Now, this is one that I probably should have realised long before I did, but it's that strength training is not about looking good topless. You're a distance runner. I can assure you, you will never look good topless. You can see all your ribs, but you need to strength train to make sure that you don't get injured. Now, this might be a controversial one, and it's not one that applies to when I'm talking about it, but I would say that not every pain is an injury, and not every sniffle requires you to have 3 days off. When I was like 12 to maybe 15, if I had any sort of sniffle at all, 3 days off running. That was my parents' rule for me, and I hated it. It was miserable, and I think that's right for that age. But as an adult, when you're properly training, if it is just a little bit of a sniffle, as long as it's not in here, you're probably just good to go, at least for an easy run. Just get out. It's probably actually better for you. Also, I can't remember the last time I ran completely pain-free. If I stopped for every single niggle, I probably wouldn't have ran for like the past year plus. So you can't stop for every niggle, but again, when you're like 12, you should. Speaking of being 12, talent means so much less than you think it does. I raced against so many talented guys when I was younger. I'm similar age to the guys who are making Olympic teams now, like Josh Kerr, Neil Gourley, Jake Whiteman. And those guys weren't even necessarily the best. They were just other people who I raced. There was so many talented guys in Scotland and in the UK, but talent just doesn't mean that much. It's about the training, and I have never seen a sub 2:10 marathon runner who doesn't just train really, really hard. And yeah, there may be some talent there that helps, but generally, if you're consistently running 120 miles a week with big hard marathon sessions, you're probably going to run pretty quick. Moving back to my time in America when I was 21, I would tell myself that you're not overtraining, you're under recovering. You can handle this training, but the fact that you need to wake up at 5:30 in the morning to get it done means you're not getting enough sleep to actually handle this training. So sleep more, and you will actually be able to adapt to that training because you're not overtraining. Like running 100 miles a week with most of it being really slow isn't overtraining, it's under recovering. If you do have to miss training, don't try and catch it up. There's probably a reason why you missed it. Illness, a little bit of an injury. There's no point in then trying to squeeze it in later in the week, because it's just going to make whatever caused you to miss the training even worse. Missed training is missed, that's it. Forget about it, move on. Something that would have helped me a lot growing up if I'd known it is that one bad race doesn't make you a terrible runner. Sometimes you just don't have a good day, but as long as the training's been good, you have to just move on from it. And speaking of bad days, running is weird sometimes. I've been running for way over 20 years and I still can't figure out sometimes why I feel terrible. Sometimes I'll go out in the morning and I'll feel rubbish, and then go out again in the afternoon and feel amazing. Running is weird, and that's what I would tell myself. Just don't think about it too much and focus on the training as a whole instead of any specific run or specific session. Something that I need to tell myself right now, because I'm in a pretty heavy training block, is that you're going to be tired a lot of the time, and being tired doesn't mean that you're doing too much. The perfect balance is when you feel rubbish on your easy days but can still come out and hit the sessions well, really good splits, and they're progressing. I don't enjoy going out and feeling crap on all my easy days, but that's kind of the reality of training at the right level. I've saved a controversial one for near the end, and hopefully the guy who comments about my nutrition isn't still watching at this point, but you do not need perfect nutrition to run at your best. You need to eat enough. That's the only main goal, is eat enough. And of course, we don't want to eat takeaways and sweets and chocolate all the time. But tin of rice pudding, some porridge, it doesn't have to be perfect vegetables, fruit all the time. You have to eat enough and you have to fuel your training, and that's priority number one, and not getting your 5 a day, or is this smoothie going to make me faster? It's not. You just need to eat enough and train properly. Ryan from even 5 years ago would benefit very much from hearing me say, you don't perform well when you're locked in or fired up for a race. You need to be relaxed. The more relaxed you are before a race, the better you'll run. I don't know how this took me like 15 years to figure out, but now that I go into a race with almost no nerves, kind of just treating it like a training session, I run a lot better, because I know that if I just do what I've been doing in training, I'm going to run well. Point number 30 is that if you want to improve at running, you have to love it. This is something I've always known, but I think it's important. If you don't love going out for a run every day, no matter what the weather, you're not going to achieve your goals. And if you aren't enjoying running, nobody's forcing you to run. Although I must finish this video off with a quick story that completely contradicts point 30 and is from almost exactly 10 years ago now, just before my 20th birthday. I had pretty much quit running, and my dad basically forced me to run the Scottish National Cross Country, because the 3 other guys who were in the team had come out of retirement to try and win the team title at the Scottish National. And me being the fastest runner in the team and by far the most dedicated runner in the team, then deciding 6 weeks before the race, I don't want to run anymore. I hate this, I'm rubbish at it, it's not fun. It just wasn't going to fly with my dad. So I remember him coming to me and saying, I don't care what you do after this race, but you are running this race for those guys who have trained this whole Scottish winter when they hadn't previously been running. You're doing it, so deal with it. Long story short, after about 6 weeks of almost no running, started the race still in a grump and went like straight to the back, and then started passing people and was like, okay, this is quite fun. I'm passing people, people are cheering on me, I'm having a nice time. Somehow I ended up 4th in the Scottish National under 20 cross country. And I remember finishing that race and thinking, wait a minute, maybe I was a little bit hasty on the old retirement decision. I probably could be quite good at this. And yeah, 10 years later, I haven't even considered stopping once. And I dread to think what I would be doing now, or where I would be if I hadn't been forced to race the Scottish National that day. So I guess shout out to my dad for forcing me to run one time in my whole life. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. If you got any value from this video, please subscribe and let me know in the comments if there's anything you would add or take away from my list. And I'll see you next week. Cheers.